Hi everyone, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Life Coaching Podcast. I'm Laura and I'm here today with Deborah from Mystic Wolf Soul Crafts. And Deborah does an array of things with her business, and I've also been on her podcast as well, so I thought I'd return the favour and have her come on to my podcast so we can have a little bit of a talk about her a little bit more. Deborah, tell everybody about what you get up to with your business.
Hi everyone. I do all kinds of stuff, and sometimes I wonder if maybe I do too much, but I guess my intuition keeps telling me no, just do all the things that make you feel good, because people are waking up to their multidimensional being, like reality. Basically, they're waking up to their intuition. And what I do, what my main passion is my Akashic records readings, and I'm a painter. So what I do is I call them Akashic portrait readings, and they're basically portraits that I offer, multidimensional portraits of whatever comes up during your Akashic records reading. So for one person, it may be a spirit guide, a cosmic spirit guide from another star system that is guiding you in this lifetime, and that guide may have a message for you. And in the portraits, there are also activations basically that are in the portraits when you look at the portrait. So what I also tell my clients is, when you have a portrait from me, you get the reading, you get the portrait, and you get a guided meditation, because it's always a good idea to look at the portrait before you close your eyes and meditate, because you will integrate the activations. It's basically like a visual thing. It's all kinds of, like, everything combined basically. And that, yeah, I kind of rolled into doing that. I don't even know how that happened. It's not like I woke up one day and I said, I'm gonna be an Akashic Records portrait artist. So that's one thing I do. I also have a spiritual motherhood group on Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's a group for women that are on a spiritual journey and that have children that you can tell that they're different, like the new earth children, basically the crystal children, the indigo children. Mm-hmm. So I host a group for women, like, and I'm also going to be like doing more one-on-one stuff for these women, these parents that need help with their children. And yeah, that's basically mainly what I do. And I'm also working right now on a little course in intuitive development, like fine-tuning your intuitive abilities, and offering that in the future.
Sounds very interesting.
That's kind of what I do.
So how did you get into, I mean, explain I don't know a huge amount about the Akashic Records, and it would be interesting to sort of talk about that a little bit. I mean, it's something that seems to be quite new in the zeitgeist, really, that is something that suddenly sort of popped into people's kind of field of vision, as it were. Where has this come from for you? What's your understanding of what it is? Can you explain to the listeners? Because probably for most of my listeners, they probably never heard of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So can you explain the Akashic Records a bit for us?
Yeah, like I said, it's not like I woke up one day and I said, oh, my job later is going to be an Akashic Records reader. No, I've always been spiritual, kind of like into witchcraft and paganism and all that stuff, fairies and stuff like that. And I was always intrigued by spirituality growing up. And I did have psychic abilities as a child, but then I shut all that down. I wanted to fit in with everyone else. You know how it goes. You just want to have friends, be normal. And then I got married. I went to college, got married, had a daughter. So I was living a pretty normal, average life. But then my marriage was failing. Like, I was going through a dark night of the soul, is what they call that, when you basically have a spiritual midlife crisis, basically. And I started having very vivid like flashes, like visions almost, mm-hmm. that I would be talking to my husband. We would have a conversation, and suddenly I was somewhere else, and it's like time slowed down and I was in a completely different environment. I don't know if you've ever watched The Flash, that show on TV, The Flash. Anyway, for those people listening, he goes really fast and his environment slows down and he sees all kinds of stuff, but people around him are like frozen. They're just frozen in time, and he experiences all kinds of stuff that's what it was kind of like. I was having these experiences, and it was like I was in a different time. Like timelines were overlapping, basically. Like a situation, like a conversation that I was having would trigger a memory of a past life.
Mm-hmm.
And in a similar situation in that past life, and I would see it overlapping with this current, like the situation that was going on. Like I would see the two situations happening at the same time, and it started happening more and more, and I started Googling it, and like, am I going crazy? Maybe I'm schizophrenic, I don't know what's going on. Started reading about it, and then I started seeing details like how people were dressed, how I was dressed, the way I looked. And I don't know if this is audio only or if you're doing
video too.
Yeah, anyway, this, I don't know if you can see this. That's the image.
Out for me. Hopefully everybody else can see it of you. But Karen, hopefully we'll pick up your video feed again in a moment.
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
So I think it's a Wi-Fi issue.
Yeah, but you can hear me anyway. Yeah. Well, anyway, I saw myself as this witch, like a witch druid type lady with like a Viking type of outfit, and well, not really Viking, but like really Celtic Viking type of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband, like I knew this other person was my husband in this lifetime, and then he like I could tell his energy, that was the same person I was talking to, but he looked completely different, and he was dressed like some kind of like warlord or some kind, like a warrior type of outfit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, and I started writing everything down. I started writing down all the details, like the way he was dressed, all the stuff, everything. And then I started Googling all that stuff, and I would find like, okay, this was actually clothing from the year 356, and that's like typical for that tribe over there, or these people over there. And I found all kinds of details, and and then more past lives started like coming up for me, and then I started having contact with like spirit guides, cosmic spirit guides. And I started researching all of that, and then I did, well, because I was like, okay, definitely there's something going on. Some like gifts are coming back online, and I had to recognize that, okay, all that stuff that I was trying to push away for years is it's basically all bottling up again, because it's wanting to be heard. All these gifts, they're wanting to be expressed. And then I found a mentor and started training my intuitive abilities again, and embraced that I needed to do something with all of this. And I was so intrigued by all this past life knowledge that started coming up again, and these cosmic spirit guides that were making themselves known. I said, I can't be the only person that's going through this, and there have to be more people that are intrigued by all of this stuff. And I've always been a painter. I went to an art academy, and then I stopped painting when I had kids, because I was like, can't really make any money painting, and with these kids running around, I can't really paint anyway. And then like I started talking to my guides, and they were like, you have to start painting. We want to be painted. You can paint us, this and that. You see us in your mind's eye, paint us. So I started painting them. And then, okay, I posted my pictures online on my Facebook account, and my friends were like, oh my God, that's amazing. Can you paint my guide? Can you paint my past life? So I started painting for friends. And and they all loved it, and then they would all like report back to me that they started meditating with the paintings and how it helped them, and that I should start offering this to more people. And I said, okay, but in the beginning I was kind of insecure, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Isn't it just a coincidence? Maybe you were already connecting to your guide anyway. But then more and more people started saying how it was helping them, that I kind of like activated something for them by offering this painting to them. So I was like, okay, it seems like this is what I have to do, because this is really helping people. And that's kind of
how were they reporting that the pictures were helping them? What kind of things were they getting? How was that aiding them?
they started seeing their guides for themselves, because sometimes they would meditate and they would feel a presence around them, but they couldn't really see, like they didn't really have an image of their guide. And often once they have the image in front of them, like I present them with the image, then they can connect to the visual aspect of their spirit guide and they'll start seeing them. That's what happens for a lot of people.
That's very interesting. I mean, when you have these, how do you get the imagery? I mean, I've seen some of your work, and some of them seem to be kind of almost sort of alien-like creatures. Other of them are sometimes kind of like mythical creatures. I saw that you did one of like a unicorn recently. How are you envisaging these images?
Well, yeah, basically what I do is I connect to Archangel Michael. That's always the first person I connect to. And then I'll connect to the person's energy. Mm-hmm. And I connect through a picture. I ask them to give me their full name and a picture, because their full name is basically like the universe's signature of this is you, like your thumbprint, that's who you are.
Yeah.
And then I get a connection from like their energy, and I start tuning in, and I ask their field, basically their spirit team, who would like to step forward at this time, who has a message that's important for this person right now. And in the past, I offered past life readings and cosmic guide readings separately, but I've learned that often they overlap or they blend together somehow. So now I just ask a general question, okay, for this person who right now has a message that would benefit this person the most, and I see what comes forward. And sometimes it's like now a unicorn, sometimes it's a past life version of this person, basically an aspect of their soul. And what happens is I just go in meditation in a sort of a trance state, and I'll start seeing an image of the being. They just come to me to basically like how I would meditate with my own guides, and they start a conversation with me, and I see them. Mm-hmm. And then at that point I can open my eyes, and I'm always in front of my laptop, and so I close my eyes, connect with them, and I have the image, and I do automatic writing. So then I start to type, and it's basically them typing through me, and then they give me the entire message that they have for their person. And then from that point on, I can connect with that person for the duration of my time that I work with them. I don't have to go into trance or meditation anymore. I can always go back and connect and add more to the message or work on the portrait, and there's the connection is there then.
It's really interesting. I mean, like, I think that we've all had, well, anybody that's kind of works in our field or has had these kind of spiritual revelations that have been, like you say, can be quite disturbing actually when you start to have them, because there's that question of, you know, how do I know that this is real? Am I a schizophrenic? Am I having a mental breakdown? How did you determine? Because I think this is something that's come up for me, certainly, and certainly common with people that I've spoken to, is they're always kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm mad or if what I'm dealing with is real. How do you come to the conclusion that what you're dealing with is real? Because I think that people that are not believers and people that haven't experienced these things, they tend to take this stuff a lot with a pinch of salt until they actually sit in front of, say, a medium or a psychic or somebody. You know, people who are skeptics often are testing people that work in spiritual fields or mediumship or whatever, because they're saying, like, you know, if you can tell me something that is very specific, very clear, that is relational to me, then it's proof that what you're dealing with is factual, if you see what I mean. And I have a lot of people in my life that are very kind of skeptical, come from that kind of perspective. And for me, excuse me, I always think it's quite important to kind of test these things to see where stuff is coming from. How did you come to the conclusion of what you were dealing with was real and was something that was to an exterior to yourself, as it were, as an individual? Did you kind of test things, or did you have like an anecdote or something where it was what you received was so factual and so truthful for the person that you were talking to, or anything like that? You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's just like there's too many coincidences or synchronicities basically. Like I'll see something. Like one example, a person that I did a portrait for, they didn't know at what time I was going to be tuning into their energy. And there's a time difference. I'm in Belgium and this person was in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So she was asleep at the time that I was doing the reading. And I told her that one of these days next week I will be tuning into your energy. But I wasn't sure yet. I didn't know what my schedule was going to be like. I said, I'll tune into your energy when I find the time and I will update you about the reading. I will let you know. And at the moment that I was doing the reading, I was connecting to her picture. I was connecting to her energy and typing the reading. Her guide was coming through and I was typing. She was asleep in the US. And then I hadn't told her yet that I did the reading, but she messages me when she wakes up and she says, were you doing my reading? But this person is also a psychic. She's intuitive. And she says, because I saw you sitting at a white desk typing. I said, yeah, that's what my workspace looks like. I sit here at my desk and I type, and exactly at the time that I was doing the reading, she was seeing it in her like between awake and asleep state, like half asleep. She could see me doing her reading. And then another example of my video is back on this portrait. I still have to post this.
Beautiful.
The person whose guide this is also intuitive. She meditates a lot and she has seen this guide before. And she said, I have a unicorn guide and I would like you to draw it. And I didn't get any more information because I also didn't want any more information. I said, okay, that's all. She says, I know. She communicated to me the way she wants to be portrayed, what she wants to look like, the positions she wants to be in. So, and that's all she said. I said, okay, that's good. We'll see. So I tune in and I see this unicorn like coming at me and like stopping and like looking at me like at a 45-degree angle. And you could see like the unicorn's hair is blowing in the wind, and you could see like all these colors, and like the position of her head was kind of like tilted sideways, like slightly looking down. And I'm like, okay. So I tell that person, yeah, this is how she came to me, and she looks like this, and she has this golden glow all over her. And then she goes, that's exactly the way she told me that she wanted you to paint her. I said, okay, good. So that's just one of these things that you know you're not just making something up. This is actually real. And that's like, there's more examples like that. Or people that that you do a reading for and then you don't know anything about them. Like this one person, I know that like the way they came through to me was almost like a tree. Like they were a tree. And I didn't know anything about this person. And then later you hear, yes, I'm always in nature and I feel at best when I'm in nature. Stuff like that. It's all these little things, all these little synchronicities.
It's weird. I find it a lot, you know, like you say, sometimes I think that for me, with my spiritual kind of pathway, sometimes I can get into a place of doubt where it's kind of doubting yourself, doubting what you're doing, doubting the situations that you've been in, you know, and sometimes when you're dealing, particularly with, for me, I find that actually the majority of the people, that I'm the odd one. I find that I'm the oddball out of the majority of the people that I spend time with. And actually, there's very few people in my life who are on this spiritual path with spiritual gifts. And actually, I don't know very many people in my life that have those things. So I'm kind of like the unicorn, you know, of my people that I sort of see regularly. And obviously, we have day lives, and you know, I'm a lecturer, and that doesn't really sort of you know, pertain to being particularly spiritual or talking about these sorts of things. And I think that sometimes we can get ourselves into a situation where we, like, I like Instagram for being able to connect with people like yourselves, and like being able to connect with, you know, people that are also on the same path. So then you don't feel like such an outcast. And I think that's probably something that's quite good from the internet that has come up. I think that, you know, for me, I think probably one of the biggest things is that thing about coincidence and about the synchronicities that that consistently happen time and time again, that is like, I can't explain what's happening or how I'm receiving this information, but I know the information that I'm receiving is right. And I suppose it's a bit sort of the same sort of situation for you, really, is it's that when we start down this path, it's difficult to kind of reckon with, but actually it comes through kind of almost anecdotal kind of testing it time and time again, that these come to be, that it comes to be factual and truthful. I mean, I've seen quite recently that the whole kind of like Akashic records, I think, is kind of blown up, that I've seen kind of spiritually on the internet. Do you know where that originally kind of started to come from? Because it seems to be stuff that gets kind of put into the collective hive mind. I was talking to somebody the other day about something, and I'd said this phrase to somebody. I was like, oh, that's a good phrase. And it was like this moment of kind of intuitive sort of intellect that I was like, oh yeah, that's good. And then I saw it, somebody else had said it 2 days, I saw something else saying on Instagram. It seems to be that we have these kind of like collective downloads that are put into the minds of, like you say, people who are more attuned, like maybe indigo children or whatever, people want to identify themselves as. I forgot what I was going to say. Good Lord, I went right on a little ramble there. Yeah, where do you find that? Do you have this thing where like you kind of get these downloads, and it seems like they're downloads that are put into the collective, or do you, with like things like the Akashic records, did you find that it was a situation that you'd heard it, and then it was like the hearing had triggered something within you? Like how did that work? Whether you sort of kind of get into it or find that?
Yeah, so when all that stuff started happening to me, all these experiences, I started researching more and more, and it seemed to work like kind of in cycles. Like the more I was researching, the more it was awakening stuff inside of myself that I basically knowledge that was already inside of me, but that was waking up because I was reading something about it. It was triggering knowledge that I already had.
Yeah. Because
that's the thing, when you read something or when you take a class with somebody, you're not really learning anything new. You're remembering things that you, and I think that's what's going on now for a lot of people. Now there's a time energetically on the planet that it is time for people to start remembering. They all have, that's what it was like for me. You make soul contracts with different people, and you also have your life sort of planned out, kind of. You have the mission that you want to accomplish in your life as a soul, and you put key moments in your life, like on the timeline of your life. Like right now, my life as Deborah, here's a key moment, here's a key moment, here's a key moment, and you're gonna activate something there. You're gonna unlock a part of that memory, and I think that's what's happening with all these people that came in, basically the generation that are the indigo children, and they are now like my age, in their 30s, somewhere 40s maybe already, and they're remembering, and more people are remembering these parts of themselves, or intrigued by, they know somewhere that there's more, and that they want to find out what it is, and then they seek out people like me or other Akashic records readers, people, or past life. They go through past life regressions, stuff like that, to remember, and often it's by going to those people that you will start to remember spontaneously afterwards, and I think that's what's going on right now. The more we reach out to people that can help us, the more we also will remember spontaneously. And it's happening to people all over.
Like that, just the word, the remembering, it's like bringing yourself back as a member to something. It's not, when you're thinking about the word, I think language is really, really important. And I think when you think about, when you were saying what you were saying, I was getting like shivers. I call them like God pimples, because it's like, ooh, that's kind of like very much the spirit kind of giving you a tickle to say, hey, that's right, I think that like that whole thing about remembering, like bringing yourself back to the member of the group, of being part of the collective. And I think that there's this, it does seem to be this kind of level of that people are kind of reborn back into this life of tangibility for whatever reason, like you say, to fulfill soul contracts, I feel that perhaps my soul had this purpose of, like you say, with along the timeline, like I can look back very clearly and look at really bloody traumatic sort of things that have happened in my life, and actually those traumatic things have been triggers for the healing and the growth of where I am now. And I say to a lot of my clients, when you start to process the trauma, actually you become grateful for it because it's created you to be where you are now, and it's like a building block of where you need to go to. And I can see very clearly on my sort of soul line, the triggers of these traumatic incidences that triggered growth in me. And I think that it seems like we have, but I'm not sure why. It seems an odd thing, because it's like, if there is this galactic kind of thing going on and this multi-dimensional thing going on, what's the, for me, I always kind of thought about this world as being a place where the soul can come to play. Because when we're in this format, actually we get to enjoy the experience of tangibility, which we don't have when we're in our multi-dimensional soul basis. Because when we're out there and we're doing that, actually what we are is in effect kind of ether, and that we don't have physical form. We can take a form, but we don't have the physical form. And so I think that there's also a differentiation when we're out there, is that, or back in soul form, is that actually there isn't this shift between the dark and the light. There's only the light. There's only that side of things. And so you can only feel peace, you can only feel happiness, you can only feel joy. And so when we come here, as much as people go, oh God, isn't it traumatic? Isn't this bad stuff happening? Actually, for your soul, that's enjoyment, because it's like you're getting to feel the two sides of that tangibility and the beautiful, the beautifulness of, like, you can't see the darkness without light. And so you have to kind of be able to kind of get thrown into those traumatic, awful situations to be able to feel joy. And so it's almost like a playtime for the soul down here. Now, that's what I think. I don't know what you think about that, but I think that what's interesting is if we've got these soul lines and we have these soul contracts, which then in turn, to my mind, creates an ideology that we have a purpose on this earth to do something. What do you think that purpose could be? Because if it's a case that we all just die and we go back up to multi-dimensional spirit or whatever, what's the purpose of all this? Because it's what's the purpose of the soul contract? I mean, used to say to create, to elevate the collective, intelligence, loving, or heart, or whatever. What would be the point if we all just kind of come here to die, to go back up to that? What are your thoughts on that? It's a big question, but what are your thoughts on it? You might have some. Obviously, when you deal with Akashic records, perhaps there's something that you can give some insight into that. What do you think?
Wow, that is a really big question indeed.
I don't do small talk, sorry, but it's
that's fine. That's awesome.
What do you think?
I think we are always meant to better ourselves, because we are then bettering source energy, because we're here as source. We're just a part of source sending itself to earth, which is the toughest school ever. So it sends itself as a little piece in a body, in the densest possible reality there is, going through a veil of complete forgetfulness, to then remember that you are source energy, to then remember that you always are a sovereign being of light, that you are light, and to remember who you are, and then take all this knowledge, all these lessons, all this stuff that you've learned with you, and go back to source and just add more light and knowledge to source. And basically to always just expand, because the universe is always expanding, and to just expand with knowledge all the time, expand with light all the time, and learn and grow and go back and do it all over again, and just keep on growing and adding more light. That's basically what I think we're meant to do here, but who really knows what it is that we're meant to do here?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I've always had this kind of feeling that, you know, I've explained on other things that it's kind of like this sort of a jellyfish, you know, and the source is like the head and we're all the kind of tentacles. Yeah. And it feels like, you know, we're all sitting there just going like, oh, I'm a tentacle. And it's like, no, you're attached to the main, yep. to the main part. And I feel like that's quite a good sort of representation of kind of what source is doing. I saw this one other wonderful one of like finger puppets on the hand of God, you know, and it was like each finger is like, oh, I'm a finger. And it's like, no, you're on the hand of God, kind of playing itself out in many different ways to experience itself in life. But then it's that in itself kind of leads into that kind of, because what I've read about Akashic Records is almost like that with each person. I mean, I did a meditation on it where we kind of went in and you're in this library and you're kind of going through this kind of meditational process where you're looking and you pick up your book and you take open your book and you see what's within it. And so it kind of, the difficulty is, I suppose, is that you're trying to explain to, like you say, the densest, most tangible, most individual creature, and you're trying to explain to it in its own understanding, which is of this 3D world, what the hell we're talking about on a spiritual, cosmic basis. And so it's very difficult for us to be able to kind of deal with this stuff without putting it into these very kind of linear 3D terms, which actually kind of distracts from the message in a way. Because when you're thinking about this whole thing about like Akashic Records, and you're thinking like, oh, you know, it's kind of like your own personal library that's kind of got a book, and it kind of leads you into like your history and these kind of timelines ideas. Obviously, you're putting it into like a 3D ideology, and that in itself kind of causes the problem because it isn't a 3D ideology. And like you say, when you're dealing with like that there is one thing that is many things. That kind of confuses it a little bit, because you're thinking, well, if I'm an individual and I have my own timeline and my own Akashic record, how does that relate to the fact that I'm also part of the collective and I'm also just source? Because then it's kind of like you're trying to split one thing into many things, and surely if we were looking at the kind of Akashic records, surely there should only be one Akashic record for everyone. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, you know more about it than I do with Akashic records. Like, is it all just one person has one thing, and then it kind of, you know, it's broken down in that way because of the way that we're trying to explain things to a 3D creature?
Yeah, that's the thing is, if you're like trying to talk to somebody here, you're trying to explain it to like your uncle or to the guy like next door, and they ask you, what is Akashic Records? Then I would say, yes, it's the soul's library. You all have your own individual file basically in the filing cabinet of source energy, and that's your file right there, and that's all your stuff. You can put that away, and then this person has another file, and you can look in their file basically. But that's the thing, it's not like that energetically. And I also don't really look at it as I'm going to go through your individual book, because your book is connected to their book and their book and their book, and then it's connected in different levels to that lifetime on that level, and then you're connected to everyone basically.
So and like a page in the whole book of everything.
Yeah, and it's more like, you could look at it more like a field of flowers, and you're one flower. But you are influenced by all kinds of elements, like the rain, the wind. You are influencing everything around you, and everything around you is influencing you. So you're a part of a bigger whole thing, and you can work on your trauma basically by going to the Akashic records, your blocks by going to the Akashic records on your past lives, and then your energy that you are creating by doing that is going to influence somebody else. So you're never really working on your individual Akashic records, because you're working for the collective. Like on that level, you're working on your ancestral line, your bloodline. You're healing things for your ancestors. You're already working in different timelines then. And then you're also healing something for like cosmically. You may be healing something that's past life related. And the thing is, your past life may have been in another star system in the future, because time doesn't really exist. So you're healing something that's bigger than Earth. And then you're healing something basically for like on the great level of source energy, trying to just bring more light back to itself. So if you're doing something for you, you're never really doing it just for you. You're healing it on like the level of source energy, because you are source energy.
I mean, I don't know whether the listeners are keeping up, because some of it is really high level kind of stuff to kind of think about. It's very philosophical as well as being kind of quite metaphysical, which is quite difficult for you know, I know a lot of people, I know I've thought a lot about this sort of stuff. I was having a conversation with my partner about, I'm reading the Bible at the moment, and I was looking at a lot of the kind of things that have been said in it, and I was like, to be honest, it sounds more like they're having visitations from galactic beings or spirit beings, rather than it being this, you know, the Lord within its single omnipotent force is coming down to talk and walk, because I don't think that's possible. I don't think that the Lord, as in source, could come and walk with us, because that's in some format of attempting to take everything that is. It's like, you know, it's like I don't know, like trying to be I think like when it says, it talks about kind of the that we've been created in the image of the Creator. I think that something interesting that I kind of like to think about is actually my human body. And I think about how many creatures are within my body. And I know like people think, oh, that sounds a bit gross. But if you think about the fact that we've got, you know, tiny bacteria all over us, like my gut is full of it, you know, full of bacteria and flora. And without them, everything goes to hell. And I think about that, and I think it's like, it's almost as if me as Laura was attempting to walk in my gut with the flora, as being one with the flora. It's impossible, because I am the house of the thing. And I think it's a bit like that when we're looking at kind of like, you know, that we are housed within God, and that the whole universe is God, is kind of like as if we're in his brain, in its synapses, and I think you can see some of this beauty where you look at kind of things like from like the macro to micro, you see things like, you know, the parts of the brain that look like nebula, or things like, you know, sinkholes in water that looks like the eye, and things like that, you know. I've always
sacred geometry, and
it's
it
like
comes back.
But it's almost like we are, or like not bacteria, but it's almost like we're the bacteria within God, where we're all
the universe within a universe within another universe, and it's always expanding and multiplying itself, and we are just a universe, like like we are a universe to another universe, and it just keeps going like that. And Jesus, by the way, was super metaphysical. He, like his teachings, he would use parables, but what he was really doing, he was explaining metaphysical teachings in really simple ways for normal people to understand. That's what he was trying to do.
I mean,
and he
came down here very clearly now, I think.
Like with the fish multiplying the bread and the fish, he was basically using law of attraction.
And it's interesting, I think, that, you know, I think a lot of people kind of, what I always find sad is this kind of dichotomy between spiritualism and religion. And although I think organized religion has become bastardized quite a lot, because it's been taken on by man, and man has used it for its own individual corruption, I think that actually they run quite nicely parallel, or the same with science and spiritualism and religion. I don't think that these things are antithesis to each other. I think actually, you know, when you look at things like the Big Bang, I think that very nicely explains actually what they're trying to talk about in Genesis. You know, same thing as when we talk about, you know, the spiritualism of that source had a thought and created itself, you know, and in the beginning there was nothing, and then there became something else. That's kind of explained through law of attraction, is explained through metaphysics, it's explained through the book of, you know, the book of Genesis. I mean, I'm probably more Christian based and understanding than maybe speaking about the Quran or any other kind of things, but, you know, obviously the same thing with the Torah, very much linked to the book of Genesis and the Old Testament as well. And I think that it's a shame that we're all kind of arguing. And again, this is that human tribalism where we want to be like, I'm the right one. And it's like, we're all the right one. And we're all talking about the same thing. I've always said to people, you know, it's like we're all looking at this glass. I'm looking at the glass, you're looking at the glass. You see it from one way, I see it from the other way. But we're still looking at the same bloody glass. You know, you'll be saying, oh, it looks like this to me, and I can see that bit. And I'll be saying, well, this, it looks like this. We're all talking about the same thing. And I think that it's a shame that we don't try to pull all religions and all spiritualistic ideas back into each other and actually recognize that, you know, their prophets are our prophets, and that we're all kind of trying to discuss the same thing, which is this wonderful universe that we live in. But I think that the ego, the human ego, is the thing that tends to disconnect us from ourselves a lot and from each other, which is a shame. Do you find that, you know, these other beings that you kind of, I don't know how you would describe them, you know, galactic people, or are they sort of living in that tangible, unphysical form, and they're coming to you within a form because that's how you understand it, do you think? Or is it that there are kind of like multiverses that are out there that's like a whole other world that's kind of similar to ours but different, and they're able to kind of cross across the veil? What do you think?
I think it's like how you just described, like some of these guides, they can move through time and space in a way that they can bilocate, so they can be in their like environment where they live most of the time, but because they're non-physical or less physical than we are, they can also be a guide to somebody here, so they can have their own life in their own like star system where they're living. And they can also choose as a part of their individual mission to assist a human or a person on the planet, because we are going through this ascension process, and they're helping us because they are basically our galactic family, like Pleiadian or Sirian or Arcturian guides. They often will remain in their own environment, but they can, just like how one moment you can be right here and another moment they're right there, or they're just at two places at the same time, because they can do that. We can do that. We just forgot all about that. And we're also too physical right now to really do that. But when you're no longer on a physical level like we are, you can do that easily. So I find that most of these beings are in their location, but they are also with their person that they're guiding. And a lot of the time, these beings, like the Syrians or the Pleiadians, they are in their own star systems, or they reside on motherships, basically large motherships, and they can communicate with their people here, basically telepathically. Those who are open to receiving their cosmic guides, they can have telepathic contact with them, and they're preparing them. They're basically giving them downloads, assisting them in waking people up here on the planet to help like elevate the planet to a higher level, to guide us through this ascension. And that is how they are keeping contact with everyone here. And a lot of people that aren't even spiritual, that aren't aware of their multidimensional nature, they have galactic guides that are whispering in their ear, and they don't even know. They're just like, oh, I just had this great idea, oh, I'm gonna go do that, but it's actually one of their spirit guides.
I've seen that a lot this summer with the lockdown and stuff. I think the lockdown has definitely brought in quite a mass collective shift, actually. And I've seen people that I've always kind of been the weird one who's definitely looking at things differently, and seeing people who I wouldn't describe as being asleep, but that's probably as easy as you could sort of say, like you say, unconscious to the fact that they're anything other than a human being. You know, and those people are having these kind of, like they're saying, like they've just, I've just seen it differently in lockdown. I just see, like, why am I a slave to this system? And I think that it's quite interesting. I think that we are going through this shift where actually the collective is considering moving from the trajectory that we've been on, because the trajectory that humankind has been on with this planet is one of self-indulgence, of egocentricity, and of destroying the planet that we're living on, in effect. And yes, not everybody has been on that, you know, has been on that bandwagon, but I think there has been a huge amount of push for that. And I wonder if the people that are doing it are as unconscious as they seem, because you think about kind of like, but I think it's just maybe that the system's broken, you know, and that we put into power people who shouldn't be in power. And so because they're not connected to themselves, they're not connected to themselves, they're unconscious of that, they push from the human ego, and that can only kind of lead to where we are now, which is people enslaved in systems that don't serve them, that wreck the planet. You know, it's mad, the world that we're living in at this current moment in time. But I have seen kind of quite a collective shift, I think, that people are waking up and kind of recognizing that what we're doing is madness. You know, the systems that we're in is mad. You know, of spending time going out to work, and you to pay for a house that you never live in, you know, to keep up with people you don't really care about, you know, to have money that doesn't really serve you, doesn't really do anything. You know, I think that if you look at kind of a bartering system, it seems to be actually a lot more functional in effect than maybe what we're doing at the moment. And I think a lot up until now, it's almost kind of radical. People have felt that as being a radical kind of idea. But I think if we worked as a collective, you know, like people have got lawns, like I've got a gravel frontage on my house, you know, we've got, you know, this plot of land and it's just got gravel on it, you know, and you think, well, why am I not growing food out there? Why are we not doing that? Why are we not living in these collective kind of ideologies where we're serving ourselves and serving each other? And I think that when we went down into lockdown, actually, it was probably the first time a lot of people met their neighbours. And we had a thing in the UK where people were going out and clapping for the NHS, which was just bollocks, really.
Yeah, they did the same thing here.
Yeah, pay them and fund it. Don't go out and clap it for Thursday, you know. But anyway, it was kind of a nice thing that people were coming out and seeing each other. And I think for some people, that was the first opportunity that they met the people that they were living next to. Because of the you know, the crushing of the systems that we've had with networks and sociality. I think that a lot of people have started to go and check on their elderly neighbours. And I know I've got elderly neighbours on one side, and I was going over, do you need any food or anything? And that was something new that was in that crisis. It wouldn't have ever kind of gone over if it wasn't, you know, because you just think, oh, people don't need me, let them get on with it. Yeah. You know, and I think that through this crisis, actually, we've all kind of recognised that we do need each other, that things that happen on the other side of the world do impact us on this side of the world, because I think people think they live in this kind of, you know, insular bubble that, you know, oh, it's UK, oh, it's Belgium, oh, it's China, whatever. But it's like, no, we're living in this bubble that is this world, you know. And I think that that's come into the collective quite a lot. And I think that some of the other things that people have realised is that they are enslaved to a system that doesn't work, is broken, is going to lead to fatality for all of us. And I think this has been huge this year. And I think that a lot of people have dealt with it very well, because actually it's been quite traumatic for a lot of people. And obviously we've lost a lot of people to suicide in lockdown because they can't really cope with that change from where they thought they were and who they thought they were to where they are now. Do you feel that that's something that has kind of like been created for our like multi-dimensional universe kind of timeline, to say that this is the time that's happening? I know that me and a lot of the spiritual people that I know have all been like, it's coming. You know, and that this year we're all like, it's coming, and we're excited about it. But a lot of other people I feel kind of finding this traumatic. Do you feel that it's something that's kind of happening for us rather than to us?
Yeah, basically the way you can look at it is you can look at it from a very Earth 3D perspective, and it's like, oh, this is a terrible time, 2020 was a horrible year, but actually this is the cocoon phase. Okay. You know, the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and then comes out this beautiful butterfly. Basically, if you look at it from a higher perspective, our guides, our spirit team, everybody over there that is in higher dimensions is clapping their hands right now. They're all going like this. They're like, yes, you're doing it. You're doing it. They're finally going through the transformation. This was determined in time that this was going to happen. This was supposed to happen because this is basically, we're leveling up. We're all leveling up. This is like how you will have a spiritual awakening, I'll have a spiritual awakening on an individual level, but this is a collective spiritual awakening, and it was meant to happen now. Because from now till 2024 is a time of awakening, slow emerging out of the cocoon. And like in 5 years, our world is going to look completely different. Systems are going to start to crumble. the educational system is going to start to completely shift and change. Professional like people are going to be working from home way more. They're going to be realizing, I hate my job. I want to do something that makes me happy. I don't like my job. I don't like being away from home for 8 hours a day. This sucks. And people are now, it's like a snowball effect. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there's no way back. People that have seen that it can be done differently, they're not going to want to go back to their old lives.
No, I think people are saying, oh, when do we get back to the way we were? So, well, I think that, no, we don't want to be in kind of like, you know, lockdown in our houses. I admit freedom is important, but at this current moment in time, actually, it's necessary for us because we're going through that process. And I spoke to you before Christmas, and I said, you know, we were both taking time off over the Christmas period. And I was like, I'm going to be back on it like the beginning of January. And I was like, I'm not ready to come back in the beginning of January. I'm barely ready at this current moment in time. And I'm thinking like, okay, maybe end of February, I might start to look at kind of picking back up, doing a bit more than what I've been doing, because I've been exhausted, I've been tired. And I personally, as an individual, have been in this kind of situation where actually to integrate the stuff that has happened over the last year, and I've had Saturn return to my sign with Uranus, which are both my ruling planets, which is just like mind-blowing for me. And last year, from about May to still now, I had this weird kind of process where I fell back into who I was when Saturn was last in my sign, and she wasn't a particularly helpful or healthy person back when Saturn come round. And what I recognized is actually this year was this whole process of actually tying up loose knots. And that it was like things that I'd thought had been kind of left to the wayside or had been dealt with or whatever, and actually had almost just been disconnected, because at that time I was like, I'm done with this at the moment, I'm going to move on. Actually, some of this stuff was still lingering and was needing to be dealt with. And I mean, I'm still doing this kind of process of like tying off. You know, it's like, you know, when they like have an artery and they cut you, and it's like they tie off the ends of the artery to sort of bleeding into the wound. I feel it's like that's why I think I am within my individual self, but also with this collective shift, is that we're almost kind of like, you know, cauterizing the wound at this current moment in time. So then it's like, because we've just gone through this kind of shift where it's like, oh my God, we're all bleeding out, and it feels like everything's gone to hell. And actually we're cauterizing it, and now we're starting this process of the healing journey, where it's like it's slowly beginning to kind of scab over, like you say.
It looks messy. And, it looks messy right now. Yeah.
And it's like, my friend used this analogy that it's kind of like that it's like order from chaos, which is very common. But it was like, you know, at the moment it's like the wave is cresting, you know, and in that moment the water is like it's rampant, you know. And as it turns into the wave, it's like, it's all the particles, everything is just fierce and violent and like, holy shit, what's going on? And then once that wave is crested and has broken, actually, that's when it turns into something quite calm that laps the shore. And I think this 2020 has been the breaking of the wave. And I think that we're not going to go back to where we were. And I don't think we should do. We were destroying our planet, we were destroying each other, and we were not living in a world that was kind and loving towards each other. And I think that actually some of the beauty of this has been a recognition that we can all work together for the greater good, that when I serve my fellow man, that's when I'm happiest and when he's happiest. When we all serve the collective instead of this dog eat dog crap, actually we all have what we need. And I think actually kind of being locked in your house for 6 months, or nearly a year now, you know, I think people actually recognize how little that they need. You know, the clothes have become dysfunctional.
Their priorities have shifted.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've got beautiful shoes, beautiful handbags, beautiful stuff. I haven't worn any of that. I keep getting up wearing the same old crap that's comfy to sit on the sofa.
Yeah, because you're not going anywhere anyway.
I barely wear makeup anymore. You know, all of these things that were kind of felt to be very important have just kind of fallen to the wayside, because actually the things that are important is, have I got food to eat? Yeah, okay. You know, people are worried about toilet paper. Do you know, a whole toilet paper crisis? You know, you think, this is so ridiculous. You'd never go and find people spending thousands of pounds on toilet paper, and all of a sudden, at the break of this crisis, the only thing that everybody wanted was loo roll. It was just like, suddenly the priorities have just completely changed. And it's so interesting to see these people, particularly the people who are running after things tend to be the slightly more unconscious ones and running from their human ego. But I think that they certainly had a wake-up call about the priorities that they had in their lives and what they were finding important. It's very. I'm excited to see where we go from here, but it's difficult trying to not sometimes get back into the fear. I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of fear at the moment.
And that's the thing. That's the system is trying to take advantage of this crisis by instilling fear. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but that is the thing, that they know that their time is over, basically, like the systems that are in place. They're trying to just basically create the last bit of drama that they can, but it's not working. People are waking up, and it's like I have this quote that I use: the trajectory has been solidified. What I mean is, like, it's been solidified. There's no way back. The timeline is set for ascension. There is no turning back from planetary ascension right now. Everyone is waking up little by little. And those of us that are already fully awake, or that have realized, okay, there's way more than just our little bodies on planet Earth, like you and me. It's up to us now to help all these other people. And that is why I've completely embraced that this is just what I have to do. And I'm here to help all these people that are now realizing, like, oh my God, this year being isolated, my life is not at all what I thought it was. There is so much more going on. I had all this time to think, and I'm not just this little person here. I'm not identified by my job. I'm not identified by the clothes I wear. And I need to find out who I really am. And everyone now collectively is realizing, I need to find out who I am. I think that's on that. If there's one question that is on everyone's mind right now, it's who am I really? And what am I doing here? And more people are asking themselves that question. And now it's up to people like you and me, because I know for sure you've got more requests from people that want to work with you this year. And I have too, because this crisis is triggering people to find out who they are on a spiritual level.
I think it's very interesting. I think when you were talking then, I was thinking about kind of the process that people are going through. And it's when you were saying about trying to work out who you are, I think the more that I kind of moved out of my conditioning, and what I did was I went back to who I was when I was a child. I'm writing a book at the moment. At the beginning, it says about who were you before you were told who to be. And it's like, actually, the things that I enjoyed when I was a kid, spending time on my own, making music, singing, dancing, doing all these things that I enjoyed, actually, that's who I'm going back to being. Almost in this very kind of heartfelt, lovely way of returning back to my child self. And I think that, like you say, what we do is we go through this veil of forgetting. And I think that the children are much more open. I knew when I was a kid, I was astral traveling every night, didn't know what the hell it was. I was having I used to say to my sister, oh, I can fly. And she was like, what? Yeah, I can fly. I do it every night. She was like, well, go on then, show me. And obviously in my physical form, it was not possible to do. And recently I spent years wanting to be able to go back into astral traveling. And I went through a process where it was just like, I grew up to a point where I forgot everything, and I forgot how to do it. And I became blocked to seeing the things I was seeing, experiencing the things I was doing. And I think maybe in the last couple of years, I've had incidences where I've gone back to being able to astral travel, which is really enjoyable. But again, not something I've been able to do intentionally. And like you said with you, spiritual gifts, psychic gifts, being able to feel other people's things, I can see with my clients, I can see what's wrong with them, I know what's wrong with them, and it's just a knowing. I just say, look, you're not telling the truth here, this is what's going on, isn't it?
You can tell when somebody's not being sincere.
And they're looking at me, and I'm like, I know what you're, and it's like I can feel what their problem is. It's like I'm sitting in their body, and I'm like, this is your problem, and it's because of your mother, isn't it? And I'm like, I don't know where I'm getting this information from, and I say it to them, and they're just like, holy shit, and they're like, how do you know? It's like, I don't know, I just know. But I think that a lot of us are kind of waking up. I think that like I was talking about my partner, he's not hugely spiritual, kind of very skeptical about a lot of stuff. And he's had moments when he's kind of certainly having collective realizations that I'm saying something that's very out there and bizarre to him. And then he's
going, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you know, yeah. I mean, when I first met him, he was very much like, I want to live in the city, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I'm like, that sounds like hell to me. I want to, you know, have a homestead and like a farm, obviously not killing animals, but just loving them. So like, you know, where we grow our own food and things. And over the summer, he was like, this is what I want to do now. And this is where we're heading. This is our plan now. So we're all planning for this. And it's from my perspective, for somebody who was very much entrenched in society, very much entrenched in, you know, the understanding of who he was as an individual within the matrix, within the machine. Actually, now that's not what he wants, and now we have this collective goal between us, which is really beautiful to kind of aim for. I mean, what would you suggest as somebody that speaks to the galactic beings, as somebody that's multidimensional and be able to communicate? Have you got any kind of wise words as we finish up for people to deal with what's going on in the collective, what's going on individually, and kind of helping them to process what's going on at the moment? Have you got any wise words for the listeners?
Yeah, if you're listening and you feel fear coming up, or you feel like you don't have control, just outsource it to source. Outsource to source. Because the thing is, you can have your life all figured out and have this plan. The universe always has a better plan, and you are always supported. You have so many beings like assisting you in this lifetime, whether you see them or not. Trusting that you are always held in light, that you are always supported, that you can ask for help, and you don't have to see like the whole trajectory of what your life is going to be like. You don't have to see the whole thing. If you can see like one step at a time and then take that step, and then you can, another step will reveal itself, and it will reveal itself. And also don't plan ahead too long ahead, because your plans are going to change anyway. And the thing is, you're always going to end up where you have to be in any moment in your lifetime, and it's always going to be for your highest and best, and you're always going to be supported. And just have faith. Don't get caught up in news media now with all this COVID stuff. Don't watch the news. Try to go inward, because you already have all the knowledge that you need. If you don't, just turn off the TV and go meditate. Meditate and just see how that makes you feel. If something makes you feel anxious in your body, like you're feeling tense, then don't listen to it. It's not aligning with your inner being. It's not resonating with you. It's not true. Go within and see how you feel, and it's by lifting your vibration that you're going to make it through. It's not by listening to the news, because that's going to lower your vibration, and it's going to instill fear, and you are going to lower your immune system by lowering your vibration. And if you don't want to get sick, what you need to do is level up your immune system by leveling up your vibration. And just, listen to your inner voice more than you listen to voices on the outside. That's basically what I would say to people.
Very wise words. I mean, I certainly shut off the news, I think, last March. I can remember, I don't really watch the news. I never really have. I've always thought it was a load of crap, to be honest. And I'd rather not pollute my mind with such levels of negativity, because it is always negative and sensationalism. It's the nature of the beast. And I think that when kind of pandemic started happening, I certainly started to watch, and I was like, oh my God, I need to kind of pay attention to this. In about 2 weeks, I was quite frenetic, quite anxious, and feeling like everyone's going to die, and it was, and it's like, don't feed that beast, don't feed that within yourself that continues to kind of make you more anxious, make you more worried, even if it's truthful or whatever. The point of it is that, when you're worried, when you're anxious, like you say, it brings your immune system down. It makes you stressed. And that's the last thing you need at this moment when there's infections going around. It's look after yourself, stay within the light, meditate, take time out for yourself, salt baths, standing outside in the sun and fresh fruit. You think, I don't know how much worse you could get from that, really. So you got to do what you got to do. And I think at the moment is focusing on yourself as an individual and taking some of that sovereignty back, like you said, of being aware that you're a sovereign being that can control what comes in from the outside. It's funny, actually, I'm writing a book at the moment called The Gatekeeper of Your Mind, and it talks about being that person, about not what you're allowing in. I'm nearly finishing it, so trying to finish it and try and release it in the next couple of months. But it is about that kind of process of attempting to stop things coming into your inner sanctum and what it is that we allow in.
You determine what vibration you want to be in, and like nobody else can determine that for you. You are sovereign, so the news cannot determine how you should feel. And also, if you are in your light, if you are balanced, other people, it's like we said before, everything's connected. You're gonna like rub off on these other people, and they're gonna feel that you're calm, that you're balanced, and they're gonna be like, I want to be like that. I should pay attention to what they're doing, because they're doing something that is helping them.
Yeah, I think for me, I haven't had too traumatic an experience, and like I said, I've had quite a lot of kind of ties that have had to be tied off, and that's been very stressful over the last year, particularly working from home and all of that sort of stuff. But actually, for me, I don't feel like it's been, tremendously terrible. And I think actually parts of it I've really thoroughly enjoyed, and actually it's been quite a nice break from going outside and doing all this sort of thing. I think
same thing for me.
Yeah, it's the spin you put on it, isn't it? It's like how you can either look at something as being your prison, or you can look at it as being a motivator for change. And I think that for me, I've wanted to look at it as being a motivator for change, of looking at the things that needed to be finalized and fixed, as it were. Well, thank you ever so much, Deborah. It's really wonderful to talk to you again. It's nice. We've done two very different topics.
Thanks for having me.
So how can people get in touch with you should they want to? Obviously, I'll put links and things below, but if you've got details about where people can find you, if they'd like to get a reading or a portrait, or...
I'm most active on Instagram, and that's just at Mystic Wolf Soulcraft. It's just all one long word. And or my website, that's just basically mysticwolfsoulcraft.com, and through either one of those ways you can contact me and read more about me and what I do. And YouTube, but I'm not really that active on YouTube, but Instagram is mainly the place where I'm most active.
Yeah, I love looking at your portraits and things. So I'm thinking I might have to get one actually to see what you see for me would be quite interesting. So thank you ever so much for being on again, Deborah. It's lovely to speak to you. And I'll put links for everybody below for your website and for your links to Instagram, and obviously tag you in things as well. But thank you ever so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome again, and we will have to do this again.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do it regularly. Actually, it's quite nice to just check in with somebody who's on a different wavelength. Like you say, it kind of checks you back in.
Yeah, because this also lifts the vibration up. Talking to somebody that's on the same level creates a third energy bubble of positivity.
Yeah,